Question 1. During a sprint, the developers realize they will not be able to complete all the work they forecasted for the sprint goal. What is the best course of action? A. The developers should work overtime to ensure all selected product backlog items are completed. B. The Scrum Master should renegotiate the sprint goal with the product owner to reflect the new reality. C. The developers should immediately inform the product owner to discuss the impact and potential adjustments. D. The product owner should remove some items from the sprint backlog to reduce the scope. Answer: C. The developers should immediately inform the product owner to discuss the impact and potential adjustments. When the developers identify that the sprint goal is at risk, their primary responsibility is to transparently communicate this information to the product owner. The Scrum team, collaboratively, can then decide on the most appropriate response, which might involve renegotiating the scope of the sprint backlog with the product owner, but the sprint goal should remain the focus. The product owner is accountable for maximizing value and managing the product backlog, so their involvement is crucial for any scope adjustments to ensure alignment with stakeholder needs. Remember, proactive communication within the Scrum team is key to addressing impediments and maximizing the likelihood of achieving the sprint goal. Question 2. Which of the following is true about the sprint goal? A. It is a detailed plan for how the developers will implement the selected product backlog items. B. It is created by the product owner and refined by the developers during sprint planning. C. It is the single objective for the sprint that provides flexibility in terms of the exact work needed to achieve it. D. It can be changed during the sprint by the Scrum Master if external factors impact the team. Answer: C. It is the single objective for the sprint that provides flexibility in terms of the exact work needed to achieve it. The sprint goal serves as the singular objective for the sprint, providing a clear focus for the entire Scrum team and guiding the developers on why they are building the increment. Its nature allows for flexibility, meaning that while the overarching purpose remains constant, the specific work items to achieve it can be adjusted if necessary, fostering adaptability. The developers commit to achieving this goal, which is collectively crafted during sprint planning, ensuring everyone understands the desired outcome. Always remember that the sprint goal is about purpose, not just a list of tasks. Question 3. What is the primary purpose of the daily Scrum? A. To report progress to the product owner and Scrum Master. B. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. C. To discuss and resolve all impediments the developers are facing. D. To plan work for the next 24 hours and assign tasks to developers. Answer: B. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. The daily Scrum is an essential event for the developers to inspect their progress toward the sprint goal and to adapt their plan for the upcoming 24 hours, adjusting the sprint backlog as needed. It's a key inspect and adapt opportunity, not a status meeting for managers or solely for impediment resolution. While impediments may be identified, the focus is on coordination and planning within the team to achieve the sprint goal efficiently. Think of it as a quick, daily huddle for the team to synchronize and stay on track with their shared objective. Question 4. Who is accountable for the product backlog, including its content, ordering, and availability? A. The developers. B. The Scrum Master. C. The product owner. D. The entire Scrum team collaboratively. Answer: C. The product owner. The product owner is solely accountable for the product backlog, which includes its content, ordering, and ensuring its transparency and availability to all stakeholders. While developers contribute to refinement and the Scrum Master might coach the product owner, the ultimate accountability for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team rests with the product owner. They make the decisions about what goes into the product backlog and its priority, translating stakeholder needs into actionable items for the developers. This clear accountability ensures a single point of truth for product direction. Question 5. What is the recommended time box for the sprint planning event for a 1-month sprint? A. 4 hours. B. 8 hours. C. 1 day. D. As long as needed for the developers to feel confident. Answer: B. 8 hours. For a 1-month sprint, the sprint planning event is timeboxed to a maximum of 8 hours. This timebox scales proportionally for shorter sprints, ensuring the event is focused and efficient, preventing excessive planning. The timebox is a ceiling, meaning the event should conclude once its purpose is met, even if it takes less time. Remember, timeboxes in Scrum are maximum durations to encourage conciseness and maintain momentum. Question 6. The Scrum Master notices that the developers are consistently underestimating the work during sprint planning, leading to unfinished items at the end of sprints. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Insist that the developers spend more time during sprint planning for more accurate estimates. B. Coach the developers on proper product backlog item refinement and estimation techniques. C. Take over the estimation process to provide more realistic numbers for the team. D. Report the issue to management so they can provide additional training or resources. Answer: B. Coach the developers on proper product backlog item refinement and estimation techniques. The Scrum Master's role is to coach the Scrum team in self-managing and cross-functional practices. In this scenario, coaching the developers on effective product backlog item refinement and various estimation techniques would empower them to improve their forecasting abilities over time. The Scrum Master acts as a facilitator and coach, not a manager or decision-maker regarding estimates, respecting the developer's accountability for creating the sprint backlog. This approach fosters continuous improvement within the team, which is a core tenet of Scrum. Question 7. A new developer joins the Scrum team in the middle of a sprint. What should be the Scrum Master's guidance regarding this new team member? A. The new developer should spend the rest of the sprint observing and learning. B. The new developer should immediately pick up product backlog items from the sprint backlog to contribute. C. The Scrum team should decide how the new developer can best contribute without disrupting the sprint goal. D. The product owner should assign specific tasks to the new developer for the remainder of the sprint. Answer: C. The Scrum team should decide how the new developer can best contribute without disrupting the sprint goal. When a new developer joins mid-sprint, the self-managing developers are best positioned to determine how to integrate this new capacity without jeopardizing the sprint goal. The Scrum Master should coach the team to collaboratively make this decision, as they are collectively accountable for creating the increment. The focus should be on how the new member can contribute to the sprint goal, not simply observing or receiving assigned tasks from outside the team's self-organization. This approach reinforces the developer's autonomy and collective responsibility. Question 8. Who is accountable for defining the definition of done? A. The product owner. B. The Scrum Master. C. The developers. D. The organization, in collaboration with the Scrum team. Answer: C. The developers. The developers are accountable for creating a high-quality increment that meets the definition of done. If the definition of done is not a standard of the organization, the developers must create one for the product. This ensures that the increment meets the quality required for the product. The definition of done establishes a shared understanding of what it means for work to be complete and ensures transparency regarding the increment's quality. Question 9. What is the primary purpose of the sprint review? A. To present the completed increment to stakeholders and gather feedback. B. To inspect the product backlog and make adjustments for future sprints. C. To discuss lessons learned from the sprint and identify improvements for the process. D. To hold the developers accountable for the work they committed to at sprint planning. Answer: A. To present the completed increment to stakeholders and gather feedback. The sprint review is a working session where the Scrum team and stakeholders collaborate to inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. It's an opportunity to demonstrate the increment, discuss what was accomplished, and most importantly, gather feedback from stakeholders to inform future product backlog refinements. This interactive session fosters transparency and provides crucial input for maximizing the product's value. Think of it as a chance to show and tell, then listen and adapt. Question 10. Which statement best describes the role of the Scrum Master in addressing impediments that arise during a sprint? A. The Scrum Master is solely responsible for removing all impediments. B. The Scrum Master ensures the developers are self-managing and helps them remove impediments themselves. C. The Scrum Master reports impediments to management and waits for their direction. D. The Scrum Master should only address impediments that the developers cannot resolve on their own. Answer: B. The Scrum Master ensures the developers are self-managing and helps them remove impediments themselves. The Scrum Master serves the Scrum team by facilitating the removal of impediments, but their primary approach is to empower the developers to become self-managing in identifying and resolving their own obstacles. This means coaching them on how to remove impediments, connecting them with resources, or directly intervening when necessary to remove impediments that are beyond the developer's capability. The Scrum Master's goal is to foster an environment where the team can thrive autonomously, rather than acting as a sole problem solver. Question 11. During a sprint retrospective, the Scrum team identifies several process improvements. What should happen with these improvements? A. The Scrum Master should ensure all improvements are implemented in the next sprint. B. The product owner should add them to the product backlog for the developers to consider. C. The Scrum team should prioritize and add the most impactful improvements to the next sprint backlog. D. They should be documented and reviewed again in a few sprints to see if they are still relevant. Answer: C. The Scrum team should prioritize and add the most impactful improvements to the next sprint backlog. The purpose of the sprint retrospective is for the Scrum team to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. The most impactful improvements identified should be included in the sprint backlog for the upcoming sprint as concrete, actionable items. This ensures that the team immediately acts on its commitment to continuous improvement, integrating learning directly into their work process. This commitment to implementing improvements is vital for the team's ongoing growth and effectiveness. Question 12. What is the primary accountability of the developers within a Scrum team? A. To manage the product backlog and ensure its transparency. B. To lead the Scrum team in adopting Scrum practices. C. To create a usable increment each sprint. D. To facilitate all Scrum events and remove impediments. Answer: C. To create a usable increment each sprint. The primary accountability of the developers is to produce a done, usable increment by the end of each sprint, which means a potentially releasable product. This involves forecasting the work for the sprint, creating a plan in the sprint backlog, adapting daily, and applying their skills to build the product. While they participate in other activities, their core focus is on delivering tangible value in the form of a working product increment. Remember, the increment is the concrete outcome of the developer's work. Question 13. Which of the following is not a core Scrum value? A. Focus. B. Openness. C. Respect. D. Diligence. Answer: D. Diligence. The 5 core Scrum values are commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. These values provide the guiding principles for how the Scrum team should behave and interact to embody the pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. While diligence is a positive trait, it is not one of the explicitly defined Scrum values. Adhering to these 5 values helps the team build trust, work effectively, and deliver value consistently. Question 14. A Scrum team has been consistently failing to meet its sprint goals. The product owner is frustrated and wants to assign specific tasks to individual developers during sprint planning to ensure accountability. What should the Scrum Master do? A. Allow the product owner to assign tasks, as they are accountable for the product. B. Remind the product owner that the developers are self-managing and collectively accountable. C. Facilitate a discussion to help the developers commit to more realistic sprint goals. D. Advise the product owner to simplify the product backlog items before sprint planning. Answer: B. Remind the product owner that the developers are self-managing and collectively accountable. The Scrum Master should remind the product owner that the developers are self-managing, meaning they organize their own work, and are collectively accountable for delivering the increment, not individually assigned tasks. Assigning tasks from outside the team undermines their autonomy and shared responsibility, which are fundamental to Scrum's effectiveness. The Scrum Master's role is to ensure that Scrum is understood and enacted, which includes protecting the team's self-organization. Question 15. What happens if the sprint goal becomes obsolete during a sprint? A. The sprint must be cancelled by the product owner. B. The Scrum team should renegotiate a new sprint goal. C. The Scrum Master should adjust the sprint backlog to reflect the new reality. D. The product owner should adjust the sprint backlog to align with new priorities. Answer: A. The sprint must be cancelled by the product owner. If the sprint goal becomes obsolete, the sprint should be cancelled. Only the product owner has the authority to cancel a sprint, although they may do so after consulting with stakeholders, the developers, and the Scrum Master. This is a rare event, indicating a significant shift in direction, and cancellation prevents the team from continuing work that is no longer valuable. Canceling a sprint ensures that the team's efforts are always aligned with the most valuable objectives. Question 16. What is the main characteristic of a product backlog item that is ready for a sprint? A. It has a detailed design document attached. B. It is well understood enough by the developers to be done within one sprint. C. It has been estimated by the product owner. D. It contains all the technical specifications required. Answer: B. It is well understood enough by the developers to be done within one sprint. A ready product backlog item means it has been sufficiently refined to the point where the developers understand it well enough to pull it into a sprint and complete it within that sprint's time box, making it done. This usually implies it's clear, feasible, and appropriately sized, reflecting the ongoing collaboration during product backlog refinement. The team's shared understanding is key to being able to forecast and deliver on these items effectively. Question 17. Which statement accurately describes the time box for the daily Scrum? A. It is 15 minutes for a 1-month sprint, and scales proportionally for shorter sprints. B. It is 15 minutes, regardless of the sprint length. C. It is determined by the developers based on their needs for the day. D. It is 15 minutes for each developer on the team. Answer: B. It is 15 minutes, regardless of the sprint length. The daily Scrum is time-boxed to a maximum of 15 minutes, regardless of the sprint length. This fixed time box helps maintain its focus as a quick internal sync meeting for the developers to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt their plan. Keeping it short and sharp ensures that it doesn't become a long status report, allowing the team to quickly get back to work. Question 18. The product owner frequently changes the order of items in the product backlog, even during a sprint. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Explain to the product owner that the product backlog should not change during a sprint. B. Coach the product owner on the importance of stable product backlog order for developers' focus. C. Advise the developers to ignore changes once the sprint starts to maintain focus on the sprint goal. D. Facilitate a discussion with the entire Scrum team about the impact of such frequent changes. Answer: D. Facilitate a discussion with the entire Scrum team about the impact of such frequent changes. The Scrum Master's role includes ensuring transparency and understanding of Scrum. If the product owner is frequently changing the product backlog during a sprint, it likely impacts the developer's ability to focus on the sprint goal and potentially destabilizes the sprint. The best course of action is to facilitate a team discussion to raise awareness of the impact of these changes on the sprint goal and the team's ability to deliver. This collaborative approach fosters shared understanding and allows the team to collectively decide on better practices. Question 19. What is the purpose of product backlog refinement? A. To ensure the product backlog contains enough ready product backlog items for the next several sprints. B. To assign product backlog items to individual developers. C. To create the sprint backlog for the upcoming sprint. D. To estimate the total effort for all items in the product backlog. Answer. A. To ensure the product backlog contains enough ready product backlog items for the next several sprints. Product backlog refinement is the ongoing process of adding detail, estimates, and order to product backlog items. Its primary purpose is to ensure that the product backlog is always sufficiently detailed and ordered, containing enough ready items for upcoming sprints, enabling continuous flow and effective sprint planning. This collaborative activity helps forecast future work and maintains a healthy, understood backlog for the entire Scrum team. Question 20. Who is responsible for promoting and supporting Scrum within the organization? A. The product owner. B. The developers. C. The Scrum Master. D. The project manager. Answer. C. The Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide and promoting its understanding and enactment throughout the organization. This involves coaching, facilitating, and removing impediments to Scrum adoption. Their role extends beyond the immediate Scrum team to help the wider organization understand how to interact with Scrum teams and remove organizational impediments to agility. Think of the Scrum Master as the guardian and advocate for Scrum in the organization. Question 21. What does it mean for a Scrum team to be self-managing? A. The Scrum Master assigns tasks to the developers based on their skills. B. The product owner dictates the how of the work to the developers. C. The developers decide who does what, when, and how to achieve the sprint goal. D. The team reports directly to stakeholders without involvement from the product owner or Scrum Master. Answer. C. The developers decide who does what, when, and how to achieve the sprint goal. Self-managing in Scrum means that the developers have the autonomy to decide internally how to best accomplish the work for the sprint goal. They determine who performs which tasks, the sequence of their work, and the methods they employ. This empowers the team to optimize their workflow and adapt efficiently, rather than being directed by external managers or even the product owner on how to build the increment. This autonomy is crucial for their ownership and effectiveness. Question 22. When is an increment considered done? A. When the developers believe all planned work for the sprint is completed. B. When it meets the definition of done. C. When the product owner accepts it during the sprint review. D. When it has been successfully released to production. Answer. B. When it meets the definition of done. An increment is considered done when it meets the definition of done, which is a formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. This shared understanding ensures transparency about the work completed and guarantees a consistent level of quality. The definition of done applies to all increments and ensures that the work is truly complete and potentially releasable, regardless of whether it's actually deployed. Question 23. What is the role of the product owner during the daily Scrum? A. To actively participate and provide direction on the work for the next 24 hours. B. To listen in and identify any impediments the developers are facing. C. The product owner is not required to attend the daily Scrum, but may if they wish to. D. To update the product backlog based on the developer's progress. Answer. C. The product owner is not required to attend the daily Scrum, but may if they wish to. The daily Scrum is an event for the developers to inspect their progress toward the sprint goal and adapt their plan. While the product owner is part of the Scrum team, their presence is not mandatory at the daily Scrum. If they attend, they are typically there as an observer or a resource to answer questions, not to direct the developer's daily work or update the product backlog during this specific event. The focus of the daily Scrum is the developer's self-organization and coordination. Question 24. A Scrum team has a very broad definition of done, leading to quality issues after release. Who is ultimately accountable for ensuring that the definition of done is appropriate for the product? A. The product owner, as they are accountable for maximizing value. B. The Scrum Master, as they coach the team on effective Scrum. C. The developers, as they create the increment. D. The organization, which provides standards and guidelines. Answer: C. The developers, as they create the increment. While the organization or the Scrum Master might provide guidance or coaching, the developers are ultimately accountable for creating the increment and, consequently, for the definition of done. If there is no organizational definition of done, the developers must create one appropriate for the product. This ensures they commit to the necessary quality to deliver a truly done and usable increment each sprint. Their accountability for the definition of done underscores their professionalism and commitment to quality. Question 25. What is the purpose of the sprint retrospective? A. To inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog. B. To assess the performance of individual team members. C. To plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. D. To present completed work to stakeholders for feedback. Answer: C. To plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. The sprint retrospective is a dedicated event for the Scrum team to inspect itself and create a plan for improvements to be enacted during the upcoming sprint. Its purpose is to identify what went well, what could be improved, and how the team can work more effectively together, focusing on processes, tools, and their interactions. This continuous self-inspection and adaptation are crucial for the Scrum team's growth and sustained high performance.